Let Max go home. The best, most brilliant, and frankly innovative decision that Formula One could make would be to introduce a mercy rule in which a driver is no longer allowed to compete in a season after they have already won the Drivers' Championship. This might seem crazy on the surface of it, but it has become clear to me after watching the United States Grand Prix that this would actually be great for both the sport and the drivers. Buckle up for race weekend update, because this one's going harder than usual. Never has it been more evident that Formula One needs to find ways to keep itself interesting during periods of dominance. Ever since the summer break, it's been clear that interest in the 2023 season has been drying up faster than a woman at a bar listening to a guy talk about his NFTs. Even though the United States Grand Prix was quite close at the end, it was still another Max Verstappen victory. But trying to convince myself that that was exciting feels a lot like trying to convince a cop that rolling through a stop sign is just as good as coming to an actual stop. Verstappen doesn't even seem excited by the victories anymore. It feels more like he expects to win, so when he does, all he's doing is meeting expectations.
Well done. Well done. Tough race, but still won, so that's good.
Can you imagine how miserable it would be to have to win a Formula One race just to feel normal? It feels like Max's capacity to experience the joy of victory has been eroded over the course of the past 2 seasons. I understand, because the past 2 seasons have also eroded my ability to feel joy whenever Max Verstappen wins a race. Max has been very public with his opinion that there are too many races in a Formula One season, and also that he does want to branch out and try other racing series. These statements should be terrifying, not just to Red Bull, but also to Formula One itself. A generational talent like Max Verstappen leaving the sport over essentially working conditions would be damning for everyone involved and could have a massive impact on the brand. If Max left F1, you could bet that a massive portion of the Dutch fans would follow him to whatever series he ended up in. And F1 would lose its foothold with Dutch fans, the same way it did with Polish fans after Robert Kubica left the sport. But it's not just about the Dutch fans. F1 would also lose fans all over the world who agree with Max and walk out with him as a form of protest. In the nightmare capitalist dystopia we live in, the only way to make your voice heard is to vote with your wallet. And people have made it very clear that they are ready and willing to stop financially supporting people and companies they disagree with on a personal level. You may know this as cancel culture. I'm not saying Formula One would get canceled, but in an era where working conditions are a major topic of conversation, a lot of people would stop watching in solidarity with the drivers and teams. Or at least, that's why they'd say they stopped watching, even if the real reason is that their favorite driver is gone. Regardless, the end result is the same. They're not watching, and that's not good for business. Now, if only there was a way to give Max a much-needed break, to give other drivers a chance to shine, and to create a whole second wave of interest with the fans near the end of a dominant season. Ratings are always poor in the races after the championship has been clinched, but a rule in which a driver who has already won the championship is no longer allowed to participate in the remaining races for the season could do all these things and more. Before we get into why this would be so good, I want to address some criticisms. You can't half-ass this sort of thing. You can't make the remaining races optional because they would never take the option. You need it to be mandatory. There might be some concerns from the sponsors or if the team hasn't clinched the Constructors' Championship yet. I'll admit, the former would be pretty tricky to deal with, but the latter could be easily addressed by making it so that they have to have won both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship before they have to sit out. And I can see some people being concerned that drivers might start sandbagging when they get too close to winning the championship because they don't want to sit out, but you'd have to be insane to not take the victory when it's within your grasp. Nobody in their right mind who is competing at that level would do anything except win when winning is an option. And I struggle to think of a realistic scenario in which someone could convince a Formula One driver to not secure the championship when the opportunity is in front of them. I don't think we have anything to worry about there. Now, on to the benefits. The first and most obvious one is that the races after the championship had been won would be much more interesting. It would almost be like a second mini season. People would get to see how the season might have played out without that dominant driver there. It would be great, and it would bring so much new life and interest into the sport after that obvious win has been taken. Take the United States Grand Prix, for example. With Max Verstappen back home relaxing, playing on his simulator and ignoring his stepdaughter, we would have had a much different race. Instead of watching Max take the lead partway through and have it go unchallenged for the remainder of the race, we would have had a very close and exciting fight at the front between Lando, Lewis, and the Ferraris. Yes, I'm aware that Charles and Lewis both got disqualified after the fact for plank wear, but what we watched unfold on track would have been some very intense and close racing at the front. And even better, we probably would have got to watch Ricciardo rock the Red Bull, and Liam Lawson would have got some more seat time in the AlphaTauri. Who knows, maybe we would have had 5 cars with a legitimate chance at victory. And that's another major merit of the Mercy rule. It would give developing drivers the opportunity to shine in a top-tier race car, because most teams are probably not going to be putting an experienced driver in that seat, and they're certainly not going to be giving it to anybody who's already got a seat. And this one isn't really applicable for the current situation with Red Bull, but most teams don't have the ability to put an up-and-coming driver in a Formula 1 car the way that Red Bull does with their junior team. But since it's Red Bull dominating right now, it would make for an incredibly interesting scenario in which they put Danny Ric up against Checo to see who wins that monkey knife fight. This might make some drivers concerned that they could lose their seat if the rookie outperforms them during their mandatory time off, but I don't think it's the champion who has to worry. I think what would actually happen is it would become much more difficult to be a second driver at a top team, because you'd have to fight head-to-head for your seat during the races after your teammate has been told to sit out. F1's organizers are always talking about the spectacle, and this would be a great way to create some spectacle while also giving a season its second wind. I'm certain you would get a whole new wave of viewers who want to see how the season plays out after the playing field gets leveled in this way. And drivers like Max, who have pushed themselves so hard for so long, can enjoy an extra month or two of basking in that "I just won a dominant season" post-nut glow. And I'm sure Max would be more excited to come back each season if he was given a more reasonable amount of time to relax, see his family, and do literally anything else. It's pretty clear this guy's days in Formula 1 are numbered because he's getting tired of the schedule, and this one gesture could go a long way towards keeping him around. And while it might make some records unbeatable, it would also make some new records possible. Like this season, Red Bull could have taken a 1, 2, 3 in the championship if Checo wasn't a boat anchor, and if Danny Ric had gotten into that Red Bull and performed really well straight out the gate. And sure, some of Max's records might become literally unbeatable, but he already has at least one record like that. He is, and always will be, the youngest driver to have ever competed in Formula 1. He started F1 when he was 17, and the FIA has since put in place a minimum age of 18, just like Prince Andrew did when it came out that he was good buddies with Epstein.